تست.
Mic check. Mic check. Mic check. Mic check.
حاولي لا تقربي على السماعات عشان ما يسوي تشويش.
Okay.
تمام.
Okay.
شكرا.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السلام عليكم. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Aisha Al-Mudahka. I'm a senior director at Qatar Research, Development and Innovation Council, responsible for innovation programs and talent programs. I'm excited to be here with Startup Qatar Journey, with our partners. We've been a keen partner with QDB and Invest Qatar and the rest of the stakeholders throughout this amazing journey in the past year, and I'm happy to share a couple of success stories out of many today. And also I'm happy to have Sheikh Al-Rumehi from QDB to join us and talk about the experience so far and what has been going on in the past year. So maybe in the first round, I'd like to introduce everyone. Junaid, maybe you can do a round of introduction. Junaid is from Wahid. We have Ahmed from Bayanat, and we have Sheikh Al-Rumehi from Head of Investment from QDB. Does it work? Let me help you. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Name's Junaid, Indian origin, grew up in the Middle East, studied in America, went to Columbia, did engineering, set up a fintech called Wahid, specialized in Sharia compliant investing. Today managing over $1 billion, many countries, and alhamdulillah, a lot of tech and research along the way. And today we've set up a big presence in Qatar. And I've moved here with my family by choice. Yeah.
Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Ahmed Al-Ghadani. I'm one of the co-founders and the CEO of Bayanat. Basically what we're doing at Bayanat is that we're building an observability platform for digital infrastructure observability. And it's a company that is a bit less than 3 years old. However, alhamdulillah, we've seen huge success where we're working now with some of the top 5 telecom operators in the region. Thank you.
Hello, pleasure to welcome you all here today. My name is Sheikh Al-Rumehi. I'm acting head of investment in Qatar Development Bank. I'll just give you a glimpse of our investment product so you're aware of. We have our seed program. We invest up to $500,000 in early stages startups. Then we have the growth program. We invest up to $5 million in startups, $5 million. And then we have the co-investment where we co-invest with angel investors and fund managers to support the startups thriving, up to $1 million. And lastly, we have the partial guarantee where we try to de-risk the investments on some of the investors to encourage them to invest and to encourage the investment scene here in Qatar.
Thank you so much. I think what we've noticed in the past year that innovation thrives in intersection between capital and entrepreneurship and research, but also talent. And groundbreaking ideas require more than just funding. So I'd like to touch a little bit upon that. And I'd like to maybe start with you, Sheikh, and in terms of focusing on startup funding journey. How do you assess the potential of startup when you decide to embark on a journey with a startup and start investing in them?
Thank you, Asha. We get this question a lot. So we are not just looking for great ideas here in Doha, Asha. We are looking for a product fit, a market fit to Qatar. So we invest in startups that make sense to invest, to bring them to Qatar and to expand to the MENA region. So starting our evaluation process with screening the applications, the supporting documents that the startup has submitted. We look thoroughly into those documents, and then we schedule an interview with the startup to know the vision of the team, to know the team better, and then we start our due diligence if we decided that we want to proceed with this startup. Of course, during the due diligence, we'll look into a key number of points, would include the market fit, how is the market feasible to them, and if there is a growth and scalability opportunity. We will look into the team and how expertise are the team and their basically scope of work. We would look into their business model, their revenue traction, and we would look into the technology and the innovation behind this technology as well. So those are the key points that we look in terms before we decide to go with the investment or not.
Is there anything that you feel like you need to prioritize out of all the list of things that you're looking at?
I would say the technology, because this is the main section, and it is the first condition basically to meet our criteria is to be a technological company with a good solution and innovative solution for the MENA region.
Maybe Ahmed and Junaid, you can talk a little bit and you walk us through the journey so far. Once you know, from the moment you apply to, you know, where you are today in Doha, and in terms of your company as well, how that's helped your startup as well.
Thank you so much, Aisha, for this question. Basically, the challenge of getting investment is something that almost any founder or any other company is actually goes through. Even researchers that are trying to work on certain research, for example, to research certain new technologies, advancements, and so on. So it's quite the challenge, and it's a pain that almost every other startup or company can actually relate to. When we look at that, we look at it as a testament to the credibility of that company or that startup that actually managed to provide some value, and that value has been recognized. Yep. So this is usually how we look at it. When I reflect this on our journey at Bayanat, so Bayanat had basically 2 rounds of investment. And the second one is which we announced yesterday, that saw the participation of QDB in addition to other international investors and regional investors. Some of them came all the way from Singapore, from UK, and then the rest are regional as well. So if I reflect on this, my journey with raising investment hasn't been easy, especially when we look at the kind of industry that we're working in. The kind of customers that we deal with, and this is the same case with almost all the other startups as well, that need to some sort of prove that value that they're trying to provide. So it's always about those early adopters and those who recognize and see the true potential before it becomes actually obvious. And this is something that we always try to seek in those who will join us in our journey. And this is basically what we have seen from the investors who joined us, such as, for example, QDB.
So I think from our side, so as Wahid, we've had 4 rounds of funding so far. So we're past Series B, successful rounds of funding. So for us, it was not really a money decision. It was more, we have a global map. We have the ability to go anywhere, and we wanted to go somewhere that aligns to our values, that's supporting tech, that's supporting research, and that's comfortable with our industry of Islamic finance. Now, Qatar is unique in the sense that it's actually one of the strategic pillars of the central bank to promote Islamic finance and fintech. And so for us, the alignment was really beautiful. It was perfect. So, you know, when we first met the QDB team, they were very receptive to that alignment, and they understood the value add. And we said, look, we're very genuine in our want to set up a base here, set up a hub here, and try and push innovative financial products. And we really respect the fact that our values, you know, are so aligned. And I'm really not just saying this because I'm in Qatar. I'm quite a blunt person, but it's been an unbelievably smooth experience, like weirdly smooth. We've worked with all sorts of investors, right? Sovereigns, family office, institutions. Very professional team, very friendly, very smart, right? And knows what to look at, what not to look at. So far, it's been great. Now, we've been here maybe 2 months, and we're figuring out the regulatory landscape and working with the government. Again, super receptive. Whoever we have to meet, you know, we go directly to the decision maker and said, what do you need? What do we have to change? Very rare. In other countries, you just kind of have to wait for the regulation to change. You know, like maybe next year, inshallah, one day, like you just keep clicking refresh.
Face some challenges as well?
Over here?
Yes.
Yeah, see, as a fintech, we face challenges everywhere. Our moat is regulators, right? It's you don't know when you're going to get the license. You just have to wait and hope you get it one day. But with Qatar, you have the transparency in being able to directly talk with the decision makers. So I've had the pleasure of meeting the governor of the central bank, the people in charge, and who say, look, Junaid, we want to push this, we will support you. So just that transparency is so rare and so valuable, because that, as an entrepreneur, that's all I need, right? You need that assurance. So we're very happy to work with Qatar in seeing how, because we have really cool products we want to push out, and a lot of other countries aren't really okay with it, right? Because they're a bit, like in tech, you have to try things. But with Qatar, you're able to do that. Like for us, we're an investment app, but we want to make the first bank that doesn't lend, right? You want to wrap assets, give people debit cards. It's a pretty unique proposition. And over here, we think it might be the first country ever we're able to do that, potentially.
That's amazing. And I think I've noticed that recently. I mean, the ecosystem is coming closer and closer together to address some of the challenges, to see how we can solve these challenges. I mean, yesterday at QFC, we had a company that registered with a bank account. I mean, on the spot. I mean, that some of the challenges that we used to face in the past are now being addressed. So I hope the challenges that you're facing are going to be addressed.
Which bank is this,
well.
Aisha? I wish we could open a bank in one day.
I'm not sure. We could.
I'm
Doha
joking.
Bank. Doha Bank. Yeah.
We'll come to you.
So yeah, I mean, I think that I've been talking about how the ecosystem is coming closer and closer. I think that's like we've seen that coming together in a very smooth way because everybody wants to make things to happen here in Qatar. And yesterday we announced with QDB 4 awardees for our R&D awards for 4 of the companies that are part of Startup Qatar. So it's amazing to see that things are moving forward. And I'd like to hear from you, Sheikha, how do you feel about that? How do you feel about getting, investments from your side, but getting the ecosystem supporting you in different aspects as well?
It's been amazing, Aisha, especially within the Startup Qatar program. We can see the collaborations of entity. As you said, we have QFC. They register the company free of charge. It is part of the program and renewal for 5 years. Aside from this, we have QRDI matchmaking our startups with the potential customers. QRDI helping with the grants. So it's been really amazing having the ecosystem players here. QSTP has participated now to offer a subsidized office spaces as well. We can see really how impactful is the Startup Qatar is being. We've already invested in 15 companies. We've committed to invest 70 million Qatari riyal so far. So we really can see the impact of the program and how other entities are contributing to this program. So it's been a success, and it's really nice to see the partners are playing a big role in this program as well.
Yeah, I think there's a role that you see between the public and private in terms of partnership, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, Ahmed, on that. What role do you see for the public and private in driving innovation and commercialization?
Amazing. That's actually really interesting, and this is something we did truly experience when we came here as well. Basically, this kind of collaboration is like a catalyst to speed up and accelerate innovation and the ability to commercialize that kind of innovation that happens. So when we joined Qatar through Startup Qatar program, it's basically something that you can experience, by the way, in the booth right behind us. You will find almost all of the entities that you need in one place, from the Fund of Funds, the Science and Technology Park, to the Ministry of Telecommunication, and everyone else that is actually involved, in addition to the other partners, for example, like QRDI. Now, this kind of partnership, this is where actually the kind of value that we've seen. So in our work, for example, we need to partner, for example, with private sector like the telecom operators in order to build our technology and further to continue developing it. We need also to partner with regulators like the Communication Regulatory Authority, for example, to make sure that what we are building is actually adhering to the different data privacy laws that are applicable in the telecom industry, the data sovereignty, data residency, and all of these kind of regulatory areas. So basically to have someone that, or an ecosystem that is actually coherent and collaborating together to make sure that this all actually succeed. And the unique thing is that almost when we met with all of these different entities, they had a unified message. So they were actually if I try to compare this to other places, for example, you will find that every entity is siloed and so on. Here, what we notice that everyone is actually unified around Qatar National Vision 2030 to actually build an economy that is based on R&D. So we've seen that kind of cultural shift that is very rare, that you will meet someone that they will say, this is actually interesting. We see that there's a promise for potential, no guarantees, but they say we're willing actually to work on that and test it out. And we've seen this from the private sector to the public sector. And there is, even in some of the conversations that currently we're having with the telecom operators, for example, here in Qatar, QRDI is actually involved in those conversations. It's like a tripartite relationship. So there's something that's actually unique that we did not see, to be honest, or experience in other place, and even accelerated the kind of development that we're doing at Bayanat.
That's amazing to hear, and I'd like to hear from Junaid. I mean, we talked a little bit from the private sector. You're a growth stage company, and I'd like to know the importance of having, you know, academic and research involvement within the company, the RDI part. How do you feel about that, and how does that affect your company as it's growing?
So you know, our company was built on academia. I was at Columbia. Our first chief technology officer was doing his PhD in computer science. I was doing my, you know, graduate degree in industrial engineering operations research with the focus on stochastic math. So we're pretty heavy on the research side, and that's how it literally started, right? So we went, built these optimization models and said, you can actually solve this problem that the Muslim world has with interest. So I'm a huge believer in startups and technology coming out of academic institutions. Now, when I first even met you, Aisha, and heard about the mandate of QRDI, I was like, wow, that's cool. You know, because other countries, it's okay, spend on R&D and then apply afterwards for maybe a tax rebate or whatever. Over here, it's we will support whatever cool thing you want to build. I was like, wow, it's insane, and it's huge budgets, right? Like, alhamdulillah, Qatar's got some money. It's very large. So for really smart entrepreneurs who want to build the future of technology, I think this is an ideal place. In fact, I've already reached out to my network in the States and Canada and Europe, saying, guys, you need to be coming here and building this IP, all these autonomous bots you're building wherever, just do it here. Right, because it's built for this, and because it's so small compared to other countries, I think that's an advantage that Qatar has. Everyone knows everyone. The government institutions work together so seamlessly, like QDB, QRDI. You know, everyone is in touch. I haven't seen this before in other countries. So to streamline research and building something pretty cool, I think Qatar is an interesting place for that.
Yeah, I think every member of the ecosystem plays a significant role, whether it's at the startup stage, whether it's at the scale up, whether it's in R&D, or different, at different parts of the business. There's the ecosystems coming together now closer than before, as I said. And again, I want to just touch upon, you talked a little bit about how you're scaling, and I'd like to understand furthermore the strategies, what strategies you have done to scale your business to go internationally. And why did you choose Qatar as a space to do that as well?
Okay, so you know, in tech, especially in our type of tech, it's an app, right? And we're in 10 regulated jurisdictions. We can be anywhere. So you start to compare, you know, Malaysia to the US, to the Middle Eastern countries, to the African countries, and we ended up saying, you know what, Qatar is uniquely placed to be a really good center of this, the world, if not the MENA region. You know, so for us to scale, we need a friendly government. We need people who support holistically what we're doing. We need a mature judiciary when it comes to companies like the QFC has. We need the ability to meet and lobby key decision makers if ever the need arises, because whether we like it or not, money is a geopolitical business. You know, suddenly this country wants this, that country wants that, invest here, don't invest there. We need to be able to meet the right people. So for us, we've reached a point as a wealth management institution where we have different problems. Other tech companies might have totally different problems. But for us to scale, it's not, oh, just spend money on digital ads. It's very nuanced at this point. And Qatar's, it's almost like, you know, it has a reputation of being a Switzerland of the Middle East, right? So that for us is very, very valuable, holding so much money of, you could say, the Muslim community globally.
Thank you so much. You are at the stage where you want to grow as well, and I'd like to think. I'd like to ask, from your perspective in your sector, how do you see that happening? I mean, he talked a little bit about the financial industry. I'd love to hear from you as well.
Amazing. So when you look at the kind of industry that we're working in, our customers are primarily telecom operators and data centers. And when we look at the kind of talent that we need for what we're doing, if you look at my co-founding team, I'm one out of three. Those, for example, are Dr. Ahmed and Dr. Muhammad. If you look at those, for example, they're the ones who are leading all of the research and development that's actually going in our company. Dr. Ahmed spent his last 10 years in the UK, for example, working at the Advanced Manufacturing Research Center with companies like Rolls-Royce to optimize and build the data acquisition systems for their jet engines. On the other hand, Dr. Muhammad, for example, worked with the New York Crime Center with telecom geospatial data to help with crime prediction. So these are the kind of talents that brought international experience back into the region. And they're leading, for example, our product research and development efforts to make sure that whatever technology we're building is always staying ahead of the competition. Now, when you look at that, we basically want a place that can attract this kind of talent. Somehow, the one who's pushing for the movement of the R&D team is actually my co-founders. Somehow Qatar managed to identify that profile of this kind of talent and build that environment that's actually attracting that kind of talent. Whenever we try to recruit such kind of talent, right now we have offices in Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. The moment we tell them, are you willing to relocate? If we mention Qatar, the chance for them saying yes is very high compared when we tell them to Oman or Saudi Arabia, for example. So Qatar somehow managed to build that world-class infrastructure that actually attracts this kind of talent, in addition to the incentives and focus on the research and development. So this is one thing that when we want to consider moving into a country, basically we're trying to see which country that is going to enable me to scale beyond that country. So we want to expand to the region. We want to expand to the rest of the world. So what is that place that will actually support us and enable us to actually go and expand to the rest of the world? So this is actually a place that makes sense for us in terms of our strategy, where we are right now in the execution, our understanding for the local market, if I'm talking about the GCC or beyond into the MENA region, and even further beyond. So this is something that, for example, has been captured well.
Maybe one last question before we open it for question and answer. I want to ask Sheikha, what do you think? I mean, you made a couple of announcements yesterday with the QDB, and I would like to maybe, if you can share with the crowd, your long-term vision for Qatar's position as a hub for innovation and entrepreneurship.
Thank you, Asha. So Qatar is envisioning itself as a global hub for innovation. With the latest release of Magnet report, we can see that Qatar is already ranked fourth among the MENA region VC activities. We are not just a strong player in this area, so it is via attracting investments. It's via, we want to create basically an entrepreneurship ecosystem for our startups where they can thrive, where they can expand, and to have an economic diversification in Qatar to support our National Development Strategy 2030 as well. As you said, we've announced number of partnerships. We've signed with Builder AI, we've signed with Microsoft, with Alchemist. This is to grant our startups market access, mentorship, access to technology and development. Other than that, we've announced the Utopia partnership, which is the first venture studio here in Qatar to support our early stage startups. So with this, Qatar is really working to positioning itself as an global innovation hub and we are still in working, and hopefully our rank would go another step up in next year a Magnet report, I would say.
Thank you so much. I think one thing I learned, or maybe many things, but one of the things I learned from this session, it's really like working with the ecosystem, and the more you work together, you kind of create the impact that you want to create to bring the right startups here, the right amount of startups, but also the right type of startups, the quality startups that we want to have in the country. So thank you for sharing your story, and I'd like to give some time for questions. Any, yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Muhammad. First of all, thank you for the talk. It was very informative. My question is for Junaid specifically. So I'm also interested in Sharia compliance in the fintech space. And I'm curious, with all the fintech related solutions that are Sharia compliant in the region, how do you manage to stand out and still get a significant slice of the pie, given that there's so many other options for people to use?
You know, what we learned very quickly is what we think is good for people is not necessarily what they want. So, for example, again, coming out of my graduate studies, I was an investment banker, so everything's technical, and we're like, wow, we're going to optimize these portfolios, give them all this diversification. And people are like, we want gold. We're like, you know what? And then they're like, what do you want after that? Real estate. Don't you want to diversify? No, that's not what they want. So then eventually we learned we have to give people what they want. No matter what we think is optimized for them, it's not necessarily what they want. Even when we're doing, our exchange traded funds, do we do a covered call strategy? No. Because people don't want that. They want physical real estate. It is what it is, So now we've learned that finance is not an efficiency and optimization business. It's a trust business. And all we do is build trust. That's why, HSBC sponsors all the terminals. You don't see digital online ads for HSBC Open Account now. It's not like e-commerce, right? It's not an immediate buying process. You just need to be in the mind so that when they do need a financial service or a need to invest, they think of Wahid. So if you see, we spend our money on brand ambassadors, on building credibility, because we've learned after a lot of trial and error that finance is a trust business, and it needs to be really dumbed down for what the consumer wants, not what we think they want. That's, I think, the difference.
Who's first?
Thank you very much. I think there is a gap between capital and innovation, just as a gap exists between policy and decision makers and innovators. And I think not all financiers are as open-minded as Sheikha Rumaihi, who seems to know a lot about the ecosystem from which innovation comes. But so how can we bridge this divide in practical terms? Do we train entrepreneurs and innovators to become like bankers and think like bankers, or do we enlighten bankers and financiers and politicians more about innovation? Because the two come from two different worlds as far as I know. How can we bridge this divide in practical terms? Thank you.
Sorry, who's the question for? Okay, I'll quickly start. What we've learned is people want to make money. That's about it. If you can convince someone that the reward is more than the risk, there's unlimited money in the world. There really is. It's just, so that's why, if you look at VCs, they're like, oh, we want to see traction. That basically means they don't want to invest in you, either because they don't like you, they don't think you can deliver, or they don't think your product can deliver. And we've seen it, right? You've had ups, you've had downs, you've had times where it's very hard to raise money. But at the end of the day, people want to make money. And if they think you're a moving train and you have that FOMO and, oh my goodness, I can make so much money, it's like Bitcoin. Half the people didn't understand what's going on, but they're like, wow, I'm going to make money. Boom, right? Here's $1 billion. So at the end of the day, this isn't charity. It's a money business. And that's the truth of it. So if someone is genuinely convinced they can make money, there's unlimited money in the world. It's we've seen it, you know. So that's my opinion. I know it's hard to find sometimes, but I do believe there's a lot.
You started with a key word that I would like to go back to, the gap itself that you mentioned. And I did touch on this a little bit when I mentioned that we've seen some sort of coherence over here. They all are unified by something. And that was actually Qatar vision for 2030, the national vision. Now, there is still, I'm not saying it's perfect, there are certain gaps. However, there are certain efforts are being taken to further close those gaps. And when we talk about how do we call something a successful venture, it's basically you get that innovation into the ability to commercialize it. So to get that investment and to bridge all of this, people will want to see some sort of a light at the end of the tunnel. Now, how do you reach a stage where you see a light at the end of the tunnel? You will need risk-taking capital. This is something Qatar started with when they announced the billion budget last year in Web Summit. And almost this year, I think yesterday or before yesterday, they announced 4 new major international VCs that are actually joining the Qatar ecosystem. And in certain funds, they are always co-investing. And in some cases, if you're coming here with a budget of $100 million or 50 or $20 million, they're matching that with you. So they're actually supporting you, so they're stimulating the market. So now there is more appetite to actually go ahead and take that kind of risk. If you look at, for example, why is the Silicon Valley the highest performing, let's say, region that has all those big companies that we're all aware of? If you look at, I think a recent study was just published a few weeks ago. I think in the Silicon Valley, almost 3 billion or something US dollars is invested every week. Every single week you have that kind of money floating around just in venture capital. And you will always have this statistically, like we're all aware of this fact that 9 out of 10 startups always die. However, if you're having that kind of injection to stimulate the economy, the biggest economy is right now in the US. So this is something that's actually happening. And once we start seeing results, success stories coming up from the market, more and more people will start to actually believe. And yeah, it's actually worth it. We're getting something out of it. And this further will help, it's like a positive feedback loop, that this will further help actually to bring everyone together, from policymakers, the funds of funds, the international VCs who are experienced and know how to screen, for example, the technology, tech startups and all of that, and everyone else who's actually part of this ecosystem. So.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Ammar. We are WISACs and AI. We are a game changer in education, inshallah. Thank you to be here for this panel, and thank you for Junaid and Ahmed to share with us your success story. It's the first time I'm hearing that gap, hub, and the rest of the keywords. My question is simple, it's for Sheikh Rumehi. What's the first step with you guys to get, and what's the timeline to get that investment? Because we just start our journey here in Qatar, and we wanted to make like Qatar as a hub for education in MENA region as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So as I stated earlier, the first step would be through applying. We had a lot of conversations during the Web Summit. We really can't capture the efforts here, so we need to capture those into the applications. So as soon as we receive your application, our internal investment team will look into it. Then we would start an interview and due diligence with you. So I'd encourage you to visit the startupqatar.qa and start applying, attaching all the documents so we really screen your application. Done? All right, thank you.
Samina Asha. Assalamu alaikum. My name is Khalid Naji. I'm from the Prime Minister's Executive Office. Thank you, Aisha, Junaid, Ahmed, and Sheikh for the very interesting panel discussion. My question is to you, Junaid and Ahmed, please. From your experience, what are some of the challenges or some of the surprises that you've experienced in setting up an office in Doha? Because all the ecosystem players have been working very hard and very fast, and a lot of the changes and advancements have happened over a very short period of time. So, what has your experience been like in terms of areas for potential development or positive surprises?
Amazing question, because we're going through this right now. So if right now, for example, I will tell you two sides. So the first part is when we start attracting this kind of investment, usually you will need to establish an holding company. So we have an operating company in Oman, Saudi Arabia, and Qatar. The first commercial registration that we managed to transfer its ownership to the holding company was the Qatari commercial registration. And it was faster by almost a month compared to the other two countries. So there is something on the positive side. And in terms of challenges, for example, the longest in terms of process was to establish the Qatari national IDs. So this, for example, took us quite some time. And I think this is maybe because of the gap. For example, there is a slight gap in this, because usually for us as a GCC nationals, usually we don't need to get the Qatari ID or UAE ID or Saudi ID, for example. However, when it comes to some legal work, you actually need to have a Qatari ID, or even in any of the other GCC countries. So for example, this was on the longer side. So for example, this is one of the challenges that we're facing. However, there are efforts that are actually being taken into this. So for example, this is actually our experience with QFC. So we're actually being established through QFC. So what happens that on the first day for us in Qatar, once we joined the Qatar Startup Program, they actually hosted us in their headquarters. So QFC actually invited us along with all the other startups. They gave us like an introductory workshop and session. And after that, they assigned a dedicated success manager for us. So they're actually taking a lot of the effort from our side to actually draft the letters, the resolution, and all of that, and actually guiding us and telling us, guys, this is the next step that you will need to do. And this is how, for example, how long it will take, and what kind of things that we will need to prepare from our side. So there are things that are impressive, that are way better than our other experience in other places. There are areas that are still like what I mentioned, for example, with the IDs. However, we are seeing the efforts are actually being taken into place, and I expect in a few years that all will be potentially much better than it is right now.
I think from my side, so maybe it's because we're still in like the honeymoon period, but everything's been unbelievable. The QFC process, the Qatar ID, everyone's really friendly. I'm loving it. The only issue I have, which I'm actually happy about, is banks are really inefficient here. It's unbelievable. And I'm so happy about that because I get to come in and destroy them, right? So opening an account, I still don't think we have our account. I mean, and then me opening my personal account, it's, sorry, you don't have this salary, you just can't open an account. And I'm going bank to bank, and I'm like, look, I'm a shareholder, I can move serious money. Like, will you put it into fixed deposit? No, I don't want interest, sorry, you don't have it. So banks just don't, like, they're just not even close to mature countries over here, and I'm so happy about that. But everything, everything else has been amazing, so alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. Thanks for sharing your journey so far, the Startup Qatar Journey. And we'd like to thank Invest Qatar, QDB, and the rest of the partners who have been through this journey. Thank you so much for attending this session.